third row, it's 34, which is David Griffin, and the number 11 car being started by Adam Blair. On row 9, it's the 179 car of David Gooding and the 12 car of Scott Parkin. Away. Safety car peels in then. 125 minutes of racing around Donington Park for the TDIs Club Enduro Championship. Get underway now. Lights have gone out and away we go. And it's Carl Swift and Andy Marston then, but it's Marston that's made the best of the starts. Or has he? Swift goes down the inside into Redgate Corner for the first time. Big grid of cars. They're still coming out of Goddard's as the leads already at Hollywood. It is such a huge field that we have. They're still coming out. I think that's finally it. But there we go. It's the Carl Swift car leading, and it's Marston in second place.
And you mentioned Adam Blair. He's third already, I think, from sixth. Marston's car, they had a bit of fluid coming out. I think it's just where it's overfilled. But there's the cars almost on the grass there coming down in towards the old hairpin where it's very, very busy. But for second place, here comes Adam Blair then in the Audi TT, right on terms with Andy Marston, who's been a winner in Club Enduro races in the past. You've got the little Lotus there, Liam Bidgeway being absolutely dwarfed by all the cars around him. But he just about managed to squeeze through. Here's Steve Cheetham, who's chasing after, I think, the David Griffin car. There's another of the Lotuses. That's the Exige Cup car just in front of the 13 car. That's the car started by Matt Fazy. You've also got David Goodin's E36 M3 involved in all of that. And here's the Bidgeway Griffin and Sammy Venables battle in that newly built BMW M4. That's a car that's been built by the Elite Motorsport team. And down there as well, there's Goodin under pressure from Julian McBride. He's newly liveried E46 M3. So a busy first lap of the race, as we come to expect from the TDIs Club Enduro races, but it's not all good for everybody.
No, and that is the number 4 Reese Lysett car making the switch from F1000, showing with ex-rally man Steve Brockington in the Together We Progress Racing entry. It's not gone well for that car so far. Might be an early pit visitor. So end of lap 1 then. Carl Swift it is that leads by 1.23 seconds from Andy Marston in second place. Adam Blair is in third. Steve Laidlaw is in fourth position in the number 100 Seat Leon TCR car as well, in Yorkshire team. And then in fifth place it's the 49 car, which is the Will Stacey Lotus Elise.
That's right, big puff of smoke there out the side of the E90 M3 of David Griffin, who hasn't had the best of starts. He started 5th. He's dropped to 9th behind Leon Bidgeway's Lotus Exige. There's Adam Blair in that fantastic looking Audi TT. Here's Will Stacey in the upgraded Lotus Elise. He was winner hit this meeting a year ago in Class B. He now runs in Class A and he's running up there in 5th position. As the field flow their way through it, free of breath through Coppice Corner, and through the middle goes Leon Bidgeway. He was getting past Matthew Hampson there and trying also to pass David Griffin, but then the Lotus doesn't have the power down the straights. It all equalises out on power to weight ratio, so the lighter weighted cars will be quicker through the corners, but the bigger, more powerful cars obviously quicker down the straights, and Leon Bidgeway manages to just about keep Sammy Venables at bay.
Lot of speed. This is being carried by Steve Cheetham. This one, isn't it? The number 43 Boxster. You can see the hydration system he's got on board there as well, which will be needed because he's driving that car solo for 125 minutes. The man from Manchester.
And Bidgeway, they're under pressure from Venables. He's in the middle of a three-wide battle there almost with Steve Cheetham. There's the Audi coming through just behind. That car was started by Mark Grice. They qualified 19th and they'd got up to 15th by the end of the first lap. The Audi RS3, we haven't seen many of these race in the UK, so great to have it here in the Club Enduro Championship. Not great for everyone, including the Volkswagen Sirocco, this car that's come from from Eastern Europe. Stuart Mead has been involved in an incident.
Yeah, and it looks like there's been a touch there, doesn't there, with the BMW also in shot there, which I think was the Jonathan Barrett Saxon Motorsport car number 7. Quite possibly. 63 car for Stuart Mead, as you say, the 1992 European Superkart champion has come to grief there as well in the car which shares with the very experienced John Maudsley. Yeah,
that was a car they've only got recently. As I said, apparently that's an Eastern European touring car that they've brought over for this year. Car number 10 there round the outside with Robert Fennick, who is sharing with Beechdean's Andrew Howard for this race, and he's come up through the order, it seems, at the start of this race.
Yeah, so we've got those two cars stranded there at the Melbourne hairpin. So
Safety
yes,
car
I
bullied.
was
Yeah.
about to anticipate that might be required, but there we see the flag on screen and the board as well. Safety car is out. Well, this is too early for pit stops, of course, because the pit lane window isn't open yet, and it doesn't open until we've had 30 minutes.
That's right. So we're a little way away from that. So the first appearance, I think, we had one in bike sports, didn't we?
We did.
But first appearance sort of in the beginning of the race, anyway, for the 750 Motor Club safety car. So Rob Baker will be picked up by that. So there's just a lapped car that will have to be waved through. But then Rob Baker in that Seat Leon Cupra TCR. I'm not sure if that's the same car they raced last year, because that's in a different livery. And it looks like the newer type of Seat. Can't be sure of that, but we might get confirmation.
I've not had any information provided specifically on that car. Some encouragement for Ben Rushworth on the YouTube comments. He is running in 6th place at the moment in the Seat. His first time out in Club Enduro, the hot hatch champion from a couple of years ago, sat out the last couple of years due to the hassle and the boom of his own business. So good news that Ben's business is going well. Machina Motorsport.
It's been invited along, hasn't he, by Corton Miller, who runs that car. And I think he shares it with the former Time Attack racer James Ramsden. And Ben Rushworth is currently in 6th, where he qualified in 8th. So he gained a couple of places at the start there. And his lap times are it's quicker than 2 cars in front. So they might be able to make progress once this safety car period is over. But there's rescue units down there at the Melbourne Loop. So it'll be a few moments before we get any more racing. Let's talk about the classes. We haven't really had a chance to do that, have we? So in Class B, it's Scott Parkin making his second race in Club Enduro. We saw Scott Parkin out at the end of last year in a Class A car. Now he's out in his, I think it's a diesel Volkswagen Golf, and he's got himself up ahead of Chris Freeman and Jonathan Packer. So it's all Golfs to the front of Class B. And then in Class C, it's Graham Kelly's BMW 325i that leads from that free driver shared car, which with them having to make an extra pit stop, it's not going to be ideal. That's Joe Oswick that starts that one, and third in class is car number 3, John Munro, starting the Mazda MX-5 with Nick Dougal, who a couple of days ago was racing a Mazda 2 at Snetterton. So going a bit quicker this weekend in the MX-5.
Not sure what all of Matt says. Maybe he's just doing this to entertain us. Very good, Matt. Yeah. Career in glove puppetry beckons. So that's Matt Fazy in the 13 car, starting that Porsche Cayman 2-litre turbo engine machine. It's just on the classes. Class A, by the way, is for cars up to 300 brake horsepower per tonne. Class B up for 240 brake horsepower per tonne the limit. Class C up to 180 brake horsepower per tonne. There's also this year a new innovation. There's the Clubman Cup, which is for cars that entered production prior to 2010 and don't have an aftermarket sequential gearbox. So there's a few entries in that. Who's leading that? Can we work that one out at this stage?
Pretty sure it's Liam Bidway, who is currently 8th, ahead of... Where is Steve Cheetham got to? Oh, he's 10th, isn't he?
Yeah.
Oh, he's failed me there for a second.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, so Steve Cheetham is 2nd in the Clubman Cup, and then there's the others, I think, quite a bit further down. There's not many cars in the top class overall that are also competing in the Clubman Cup, which score their own points for the first time this year for the slightly older, perhaps a bit less modified cars.
Yeah, and that they also get points within classes A, B and C as well, based on their overall finishing position too, but it's an extra sort of something to race for the odd. Just at the back of shot there, let's see if we can see this run through shot. You can see the GR Yaris, the white and red and black car. That's being driven by Cam Walton, and he, of course, the MR2 Class B champion from last year. But this is the very first time that we've had one of these GR Yarises racing in the UK. It's been prepared by Rogue Motorsport, although and that's been going on since last November, although Cam has been getting a bit more hands-on with it in recent times. Of course, it's got a 1.6 litre 3-cylinder turbo petrol engine in it. There we're watching the number 3 car go through. That's John Munro at the moment, the man who produces videos for racing games, the MX-5 or the Max-5 champion in 2016. He's showing that car with Nick Dougal. That's another TWP entered machine. Were those safety car lights out, did I spot, when the safety car just cut through shot?
I don't think so, because there's still rescue crews down at the hairpin, I can see.
My eyes deceived me then, yeah, they're still very much on, aren't they?
So obviously this can help a couple of people out. One, those whose fuel tanks aren't so good, so therefore they're saving fuel here. So therefore they can go longer into the race. And it also is helping out anyone who's got perhaps they're slightly slower or less experienced driver starting the race. And we always see Andy Schulz go well in the second half of these races, don't we? That car started third. Matthew Hampson's dropped to 13th so far, but of course they're not losing time here. And Andy Schulz has proved to be very quick in that BMW E46 M3. So a couple of types of people being helped out by this early safety car.
For those watching the live stream, let's just explain the colours on the time tower. So the pale blue, which is everyone in the top 10 at the moment, is a Class A car. The red, that is for cars in Class B. And the darker blue colour, those are the cars in Class C. Let's say those splits at 300, 240 and 180 brake horsepower per tonne. That's just a bit of explanation for those watching on the live stream at 750mc.co.uk. Start that again, 750mc.co.uk/live, or via Alpha Live. You can find them on YouTube as well. Alpha Live producing all of the footage here this weekend. Still under safety car here at Donington Park. We've had just about 11.5 minutes of racing, although quite a bit of that, and that's now been behind the safety car. We're going to get at least one more lap behind it as well. A quick some birthday greetings to Julia Harding, one of our volunteer marshals. I think she's having her 50th birthday, if not today then sometime quite soon. Very many happy returns of the day, whichever day it is, to Julia Harding. And once again, many thanks to all of the marshals who support the 750 Motor Club in such good numbers wherever we go around the country, but particularly here at Donington Park. It's been a busy weekend for Donington regulars because they had the 2-day Masters meeting over the past couple of days to enjoy as well, or on Friday and Saturday, I should say, in that case. There's that Yaris again. The reason I talk about Yaris is I did used to drive an older shape Yaris many years ago, but it's nice to see that car out there for Cam Walton.
And it's the newest car on the grid as well, I should think, or with the Seats as well.
Yes, one of the most modern.
2021 spec car, and the car that really was built the Gazoo Racing version of the Yaris, so they could go World Rally Championship with it, and that has been very successful for Toyota. And Rogue Motorsport have got a close association with Toyota, haven't they?
They do, yeah, absolutely. And Cam himself, when we're just thinking about that car, he's got experience racing in Australia. He was raced out there in the Toyota 86 Racing Series. He was a championship contender to the final round in his rookie season. That supported V8 supercars, and he got the fastest lap at Bathurst as well. He says that was a very cool experience. Well, I should think it probably was. He got the lap record at Sandown as well. And he was also a race engineer to TCR Australia Championships, winning Hyundai i30N TCR for HMO Customer Racing. Will Brown, the drivers' champion that year in the Australian TCR.
You mentioned Adam Blair earlier. It's cool to have him back out racing, isn't it, with this Audi TT? As you say, back in British Formula 3, had about 40 car entries when he raced in the National Championship a couple of decades ago. I think he's done some enduro car racing, hasn't he?
Yes.
Recently, but this is a big speed increase from there. And he's running really well. He got from 6th to 3rd in that corner early on, and going well in what is a really nicely prepared Audi TT, which I think is owned by Ryan Parkin. He's a co-driver with the 2-litre TFSI engine for the Darkside Developments driver. And that's a car that was built by Slide Sports for the Volkswagen Racing Cup a few years ago.
Just going back to Adam Blair, I did pop onto his website yesterday, which is well worth a visit, because in his driver profile, he didn't just list all of his racing achievements. He gave an excuse as to why he didn't do better in each case, including, I think, in Formula First in 1998, when apparently all of the first 3 cars in the championship were deemed to be illegal. His wasn't. He was 4th, but they decided not to disqualify them anyway. Anyway, safety cars back in. Racing is back underway in the Jaguar Club Enduro Championship, and it's Carl Swift then that leads away from Andy Marston in 2nd, and then it is that man Adam Blair in 3rd place in the Audi.
And Andy Marston's made a great restart. He's right on time with Carl Swift. Here comes Ben Rushworth. He dives up the inside of Will Stacey, but Will Stacey with a lighter car hangs on around the outside. We know that Ben Rushworth can race really well. He won the Hot Hatch Championship, and he won pretty much every Hot Hatch race a few years ago, and he's right there with Will Stacey, again, who is a very successful driver in this championship and in Lotus Cup races in the past as well. There's a couple of TCR cars together. That was Matt Wallace ahead of Mark Grice, who continued to make progress at the end before the safety car come in, because he's up to the top 12 now in that Audi. The Seat and the Audi, basically the same car with a different body kit on it, both built by Seat Sport, I think, part of the same group, and already more problems. This is the BMW 328i that's got Joel Oswick starting it.
Yeah, and he stopped it at Redgate Corner in a kind of exposed position, so we'll see what happens with that.
Well, Ben Rushworth's lost a place, so that's not in the plan. Dave Griffin, who didn't make the best of starts in this fantastic-looking E90 M3, is up into the top 6. He did qualify 5th, did Dave Griffin. He is an Australian driver, isn't he, Dave? And he's up there inside the top 6. As Steve Laidlaw there returning to 750 Motor Promotion, he's 4th. In another of the Seats. The Seats are sort of scattered all the way through the top 20 or so, aren't they? And with this balanced performance type of method that 750 Road Club have put in for this season, so the Seats fit nicely inside Class A. And very sideways there was Adam Blair, was it?
Yeah, I just... because that was into the yellow flag zone, I think, wasn't it? So I wonder if he cottoned on late that there was a yellow flag. Not quite sure, but couldn't see where the yellow flag was.
Well, we know that drivers need to keep in full control of their cars during yellow flag zones.
Absolutely, absolutely. If you don't, then action will be taken.
Well, the tyre is rubbing on the bodywork, isn't it? That's what's going on for Dave Griffin.
That's Chris Freeman slow, very slow through Redgate and Hollywood, and delaying cars behind him.
So we still have got yellows there at Redgate Corner, so that will all be kept an eye on. Here is Ben Rushworth then. He's not sliding around here, and this is very unusual. I wonder if there's fluid down at Redgate, because there's been at least 3 cars that have had a moment, haven't there?
Yeah, that was Lewis Rose in the Honda Civic EP3.
Luke Handley here is way down the order, 23rd, which is something like 6th in class. Of course, he was a champion for the last 2 years in Class B.
As we are watching the 2 cars here disputing 3rd and 4th position, but we're going to get the safety car again with that situation up at Redgate Corner. So a little bit of excitement for 3 or 4 minutes, and then we're back into safety car order again, I'm afraid. Is the safety car? Yeah, the safety car is waiting at the end of the pit lane. Hopefully it will pick up the race leader. It's got a back marker just going through first, which is the James Miller Renault Clio 197, and the safety car moves out onto track, and it is just about going to pick up Carl Swift, the very experienced Carl Swift, and Andy Marston as well. So we've had less than 20 minutes. We're now on to our 2nd safety car period. Adam Blair there in 3rd place, just taking sort of an interesting line. I don't know if he was aware that there's maybe something down on the circuit on the normal racing line there.
Yeah, I assume that's what's happened, that 3 drivers have had a moment down there, and we saw that BMW expire 1 lap earlier. So whether the track will need to be addressed before we carry on with this race, and whether that will mean we get this safety car period that takes us into the pit window.
Yeah, because it will open in 11 minutes time or so, won't it? And I think some people already on the feed have suggested that there'll be a safety car just as soon as the safety car will head out as soon as the pit lane window is open. Well, it might be out when the pit lane window does open. Suggestions that this is the slippery surface flag out there now, to no one's great surprise. But the Audi TT being driven by Adam Blair looks like the ex-Simon Walton car, which is more than possible, I think, because that was a car prepared for the VW Cup, which did allow Audis in it.
Slide Sports, which I think could well be the case.
Is that reslice it near the bottom of the timing screen? Yes, I'm afraid it is.
Yeah, he's made 2 pit stops now. That car's just come down the bits again.
Yeah, first time racing with a roof, of course. He's done F1000 for a couple of seasons now. Teenager from West Midlands.
Well, racing at the moment might be maybe not be the term that he's using.
He's doing some driving, certainly, but probably not as much of it as he would like.
Just saw going through there the Ginetta G40, which is out with Matthew Tidmarsh and Chris Webster have upgraded from a Mazda MX-5 in Class B to a Ginetta G40 in Class B, so from Class C to Class B. So great to have that out, and that is out in Gulf colours. I think I saw at one point that was sort of in Rothko style livery. They, of course, have the big collection of Gulf coloured race cars, I think, down in Surrey.
13, back on board for some more entertainment, courtesy of Matt Fazy. What's he going to do this time? At the moment, he's keeping his hands on the steering wheel, which is probably an excellent idea. Where is he in the order?
He's moved up the 3rd in Class B. Scott Parkin still leads. Jonathan Packer is now 2nd. I think the pole man, Chris Freeman's dropped to 4th. So up the 3rd for Matt Fazy.
Talking of Scott Parkin leading Class B, I think, I don't know if you've mentioned already, but it's the first time he's raced against his brother Ryan, who of course is sharing with Adam Blair in the number 11, twin brother indeed, Ryan Parkin. Who are in different classes, which I think they've done deliberately to avoid too much in the way of conflict.
Because of course they had this 2-driver effort in multiple cars, didn't they, at the Burkitt Relay?
That's right, as they happened for a couple of years actually. Yeah.
Until one car broke down, it was all looking quite good.
Yeah, that's right.
Here's the Toyota.
Yeah, there it is. That's the Cam Walton car. And I do think they look great, those little GR Yaris's, I think, and I know that they've been hugely popular on the road. Lots of people have snapped them up. I did have a good think about it myself at one point because wonderful little car.
It's also in the Toyota Works livery, isn't it?
It is, yeah. So it looks really good. Road Motorsport have done a good job with that to get that ready for racing and to give our Club Enduro Championship. It is running within Class A, sort of well down the order within Class A, but it does just have that 3-cylinder, 1.6 litre turbocharged engine. Safety car continuing on for another lap. It looks like that fluid spill has been dealt with. It wasn't a particularly long fluid spill, just from the sort of pit lane exit to the point at which that car stopped, which was the 235 car, wasn't it, the Joel Oswick car?
All we need to do now is try and encourage Alpin Evans or something like that to come out and share the car.
Oh, yeah, there's an idea. Patrick Mortel can work on that one, I'm sure.
Or Sebastian Ogier, of course, has stopped rallying now and has started his circuit racing career.
Well, perfect. It's written in the stars. So this
at the moment, though, it looks like a car that's not quite on the front end of Class A pace, doesn't it?
No, and I guess there's a bit of development to do, and it's going to be a very different car to those Leon TCRs and the sort of beefy BMW M3s as well at the front end. It's going to be very difficult to get it on terms, but I'm sure it won't stop Road Motorsport and Cam, who's sort of a race engineer in his own right, doing what's required to get that closer to the sharp end.
There's not many 3-cylinder racing cars either, is there? Especially not in the 750 Motor Club.
Did you not commentate on 50 odd yesterday? 3-cylinders, aren't they?
Not with 750 Motor Club.
Citrusy ones, no. Anyway.
And depends what your term of racing car is.
True. Steve Cheatham is who we're on board with at the moment in the number 43 car, the drive from Manchester in the Porsche Boxster. Long time Porsche racer, of course. He's just sort of going through a shot there as well.
There's the Class B leader there, the Diesel Golf of Scott Parkin, and then the Class B car directly behind. The Class B car is a bit further down the overall order than sometime we expect because there are so many Class A cars this year, especially at this first meeting. Class C not so well presented here, but there are a lot more registrations, I understand, so expect Class C to expand as the season goes on.
Yeah, the Club Enduro calendar this year, where does that take us? We go to Croft at the end of May for the second round of the championship, then Spa-Francorchamps for 2, I think, 100-minute races there on the 8th and 9th of July.
You sure it's 2 races this year?
I believe so.
No, I just said round 1.
It's one round, but it's a joint combined result. 1st of July, Snetterton 300, 21st of August, Silverstone International. Snetterton 300 is the 180-minute race. Lights are out on the safety car, by the way, so getting racing underway shortly. Silverstone International, Anglesey. Be good to go back there with Club Enduro, and Alton Park to round out the season.
Yeah, I'm sure people are hoping it's not going to be hot as hot at Snetterton as it was 1 year ago. Otherwise,
especially if you're doing a single driver.
Exactly. Well, there were people pulling out last year because it was too hot. Anyway, it's not that hot here. It's warm enough for Easter Monday, and we're about to get racing back underway. In the previous restart, Andy Marston had a go at getting past Cole Swift. Let's see if he can do it again. We're about 25 minutes in, so it'll be 5 minutes to the pit window opens, and Cole Swift has got around the hairpin really well and accelerated away from Andy Marston.
That resliced car, that's had gearbox issues, by the way, is the news on that one. So, oh, what a big moment for Carl Swift, and he's off! He's off! He's going to be into the gravel, surely, on the restart. Yes, he is. He's found some fluid that wasn't dressed, I think, more than likely, and he's going to resume, but he's going to resume in 4th or 5th or 6th position.
Nobody else went off, so whether he just changed the brake bias on the car that was wrong, I don't know. But it was a big moment, that is for sure. He managed to keep it out the barriers, and he managed to keep it without losing too many positions. Everybody else is getting into Redgate with no problems. So yeah, very odd and a strange, unusual mistake from Cole Swift. Let's see if we can work out how he went off with a replay here on Alpha Live. So he went across the line, everybody else is on the same line as him, and as soon as he brakes, it does seem like a brake bias problem rather than anything else, but...
Yeah, it seems to be. It wasn't fluid, I don't think, but we'll see. Well, we won't hear from Carl Swift during the race, of course, but we might hear from him if he wins it, which now will be a taller order than it was. But it would be useful to find out from Carl, if we can, at some point later on, or from his team possibly. Might sort of down there in the pit lane, what the situation was with there. We're only 3 minutes away, or just under 4 minutes away actually, from the pit lane window opening.
TCR racing out on track between Matt Wallace and between Mark Grice there, Sayat versus Audi. They've got a Porsche in front of them, which is Steve Cheatham's Boxster. In a Class B battle here, that's Matt Fazy going down the inside of Jonathan Packer for second. But here's our new race leader then, Andy Marston, ahead of Adam Blair. Andy Marston goes right to the right-hand side of the circuit, so he is concerned that there could be fluid down after seeing what happened in front of him. There's Cole Swift. He gets 4th place back from Will Stacey down the inside into Redgate corner, so it hasn't put him off much, and really he didn't lose much time considering what happened. And now we can ride on board with Steve Cheatham, who behind him has Mark Grice now, because Mark Grice has got ahead of Matthew Wallace, and down the Craner curves. How quick are these cars downhill? Very quick indeed. Then down a gear into the old hairpin, well over the curbs on the right hand side of the track, then letting the car run out wide over the curbs on the left, but going no further, because if you do you'll get track limits, and then climbing up the hill through Schwartz curve, through the left-hander, then getting the car straight before braking down a gear into McLean's, and all while trying to keep Mark Grice's Audi RS3 behind him.
Yeah, absolutely good with a rear-facing camera in Steve Cheatham's car at the moment, but it's a front-facing one. He's got a couple of cars not too far behind him. As there we see the Will Stacey car, which is back down to 5th position now. The car has got back up into P4. There is Steve Cheatham in that 10th position, number 43 car with just behind him, number 27. That's the Diesel Gulf, isn't it, that's smoking, so that's not to be worried about. And Cole Swift gets 3rd up the inside of Steve Laidlaw, making his debut in the Club Enduro Championship in that Sayat lane. And now Steve Cheatham sideways, trying to brake as late as he dared. Had Mark Grice come down the inside, bit of opposite lock as Steve Cheatham accelerates, tries to find another gear, didn't go quite as well as he planned that gear change, and that allows this Audi RS3 to just pull away a little bit in the hands of Mark Grice. He takes a much wider line than the front-wheel drive Audi. The rear-wheel drive Porsche then goes through, goes up again. It's one of the Clubman Cup competitors for the older cars without a sequential box, but here is a change for what is 8th position, because Sammy Venables has got ahead of Liam Bidray heading down the start and finish line, but Bidray trying to fight back. He is the Clubman Cup leader in that Lotus Exige, and we won't be too much longer in before we get into lap traffic with the Class C cars, obviously with a lot less power than the leading machines. Yeah, that's the 23 car, which is being driven at the moment by James Miller, but Sarah Dennis will take that over. James Miller think, having his first race, as it is his first ever race, first time around Donington Park as well, driver of car number 23. But we're going back up the field to look at number 27, up into the top 10 now. Mark Bryce has got ahead of Steve Cheetham, and just behind them are the Wallace's Matt Wallace in the number 6 car at the moment, and there, coming up a position, is number 12, Scott Parkin.
Yeah, the Class B leader getting past Matthew Hampson and putting some Class A cars between himself and Jonathan Packer, who's moved from Class C to Class B, from Honda Civic to Volkswagen Golf for this season. And therefore he's now got a bit of work to do to catch up the class leader, Scott Parkin. But Scott Parkin was spectacular there, getting down the inside into McLean. So there's Sammy Venables in now 8, pulling away from Liam Biddrake, but he is being caught by Mark Bryce, and Steve Cheetham is 11th with this great big rear wing on the back of the Porsche Boxster.
Yeah, absolutely right. And a bit further up, we can see it's very close here.
Change for a second.
And it is a change, isn't it? Yes, it is indeed. So through to second place has gone the number 1 car, Carl Swift, fighting back. He's 3.2 seconds behind Swift now. He's got ahead of Adam Blair in the Audi. He's now got 3.2 seconds to catch Andy Martin in the BMW M3 out at the front of the field at the moment.
Yeah, that's right. So Andy Marston in this E46 M3 GTR that he got towards the end of last year. Now that's Class B, Scott Parkin now behind the Porsche Cayman. Perhaps I missed that in all of that then. So Matt Fazy has got to the front of Class B. No, so that was Scott Parkin trying to chase him, and he is catching him. There's only a couple of attempts between them now. Meanwhile up front, that gap coming down from Andy Marston to Cole Swift, and Adam Blair trying to go with Cole Swift at a much wider line in the Audi TT, as now the pit window is open because we've had 30 minutes of racing. We've got Will Stacey going well in that Lotus in this pack, which is being headed in 4th place by Steve Laidlaw, who shares with his son, which is Sam Laidlaw, who will be getting in later on. And then behind is Dave Griffin, who's got ahead of Will Stacey then at the start of this lap. Then Ben Rushworth in the Seat lay on behind. And a gap back, who just lapped that Clio we mentioned, in 8th position is Sammy Venables, but he's some 5 seconds behind this battle that we watched, which includes BMW, Seat and Lotus.
It does, and Ben Rushworth at the back of that little group in 7th position. Number 2, we're on board here with Matt Fazy then, number 13.
Adam Blair is being given a penalty already for exceeding track limits of 5 seconds. Didn't have that problem back 20 years ago, did you, in things like Formula 3? But that's obviously a newer regulation in Motorsport UK racing, and already, not many racing laps into this race, Adam Blair has got a penalty. To
be fair, 20 odd years ago, most circuits wouldn't have wanted to exceed track limits, but the sort of geography of the circuits has changed, hasn't it, with much more appealing runoff areas than we've had before. So that's Fazy going wheel to wheel with the car of, it's the Dayburn Lotus Exige, isn't it? Stuart Dayburn's driving the 44 car. That's one of the Class A machines, so it's not for class position.
Yeah, I think that's the V6 Cup R that was raced in Europe a decade or so ago. Going through there is Nicole Drought making her debut. So is there fluid down there
there
still?
Could well be. Let's have a look.
Phil Driver.
It is Phil Driver, yeah, that's at the moment there. The 62-year-old semi-retired ex-British GT driver, of course, but he's racing all kinds of different things down the years.
You've got 2 drivers that have raced in Aston Martins and British GT in this race. With Andrew Howard, who will drive that Lotus there later on, and Phil Driver, who we've just seen, who has been a class winner in the past in the TDIs Club Enduro Championship. But yeah, we saw Nicole Drought there making her Club Enduro debut. Good to see quite a number of female race drivers in the TDIs Club Enduro on this opening weekend of the season. We've got another Seat battle developing. That is between Matthew Wallace and Phil Knibb, as they turn their way through the hairpin in 12th and 13th. Here's the Class B leader with a Class A car between them. So that is Matt Fazy ahead of Scott Parkin. Then there's a gap back to Jonathan Packer, who's 3rd. 4th is Chris Freeman. And 5th is the champion from last year, turning through the hairpin there, Luke Handley. Class C, a bit further back, and we watch the Toyota, continues to be led by Graham Kelly. Here is Cam Walton, who runs in 28th position. It's on the best lap of 1 minute 49.5. is just behind David Goodin's BMW and just ahead there of Phil Driver included, trying to recover after his off, but it was between them was the Rose Civic.
There's the GR Yaris again. Looked absolutely fantastic, I think, that 50 car for Cam Walton, prepared, of course, for Enduro racing by Road Motorsport, with Cam also getting involved in some of the preparation and development work on that car.
Lead gap down to 1.5 seconds. David Goodin in the pit, so is Nigel Greensaw a pro driver still only allowed to do 50% of the race, or is that regulation no more? But if Nigel Greensaw gets in now, if that regulation still remains, that is not ideal. I'm sure it was the Goodin BMW that I just saw come down the pit lane.
The pit lane window is open, of course. That's part of the regulations I haven't extracted from my information. That's the 99 car of Joe Williams. That was the car that started from the back. How far of the order had that got? Not into the top 30, I don't think. Last
registered in 41st.
Okay. And that's more than a mandatory routine stop for Joe Williams, I think.
WRT, it says on the side, not to be confused with Vincent Voss's team. This is the Williams racing team. Run this Volkswagen Golf. Lots of Golfs out there this year. A popular car.
I think a few of them ex-VW Cup cars as well, some of them.
There is a look at the Volkswagen engine. So the lead gap now 1.2 seconds as Cole Swift continues to catch Andy Marston.
Off the circuit though goes, that's the number 101 car of Nick Grove, the BMW 130i from Class B.
That was a McLean's. More penalties for Adam Blair. He's now got a 15-second penalty for exceeding track limits. So not too sure what Ryan Parkin will be making of this in the pit lane. There comes the 1 Series back onto the circuit. Interesting little stat I noticed is we've got 1 Series, 2 Series, 3 Series and 4 Series models of BMW in this race, which is pretty unusual.
It is. I don't know if that's ever before. There we go. So there you've got 2 of the smaller cars in the race coming towards us, the Clio and the Yaris, with the Honda Civic just behind.
There's Phil Driver recovering. He's in 28th position now. Here are the leaders though, in traffic. Andy Marston versus Cole Swift. Cole Swift who raced desperately late into the hairpin. So we've got rear-wheel drive BMW E46 here versus front-wheel drive Seat Leon, and they accelerate up across the line. I think that's the Class C leader they're about to lap, the Graham Kelly BMW, who continues to lead Class C by about 7 seconds over the Hazy Saviani BMW, then Dougal Munro Mazda is third. Cars across the track here. Is that the Gooding car back out? Or it was a quick stop? Obviously some kind of problem, wasn't it?
The driver changed up.
And in front of them there was a challenge for what was 7th position, because Sammy Venables has caught William Stacey.
Yes, so that is for 7th, 49 and 70. They were separating half a second as the cars came across that line to complete lap 17.
The XZ just pulled away from the Class B cars, which have swapped around because Scott Parkin, has got back ahead of Matt Fazy. So Volkswagen back ahead of Porsche, and Scott Parkin's just set his personal best lap of the race. There's Matthew Hampson. He's lost a lot of positions now, hasn't he? He's down to 21st, so I think that's going to make life difficult for Andy Schulz in the second part. Nicole Drought, who I was talking about earlier, I think Lotus may have just expired.
It looked very much like it, didn't it? So that's going to be one. Yeah, it is just pulling into the pits. That's surprising.
That's the car that's won in the past in the hands of Alan Henderson when the car got to the end. But it looks like it may get no further.
The Irish driver out of the race, unfortunately.
Lead gap half a second. We saw Cole Swift had caught Andy Marston. It might be harder to overtake him though. They're 7 seconds ahead of Ryan Parkin. Ben Rushworth's up to 5th now, so he's got back ahead of Dave Griffin and also past William Stacey. So Ben Rushworth going well. He won't have that much experience with lap traffic, I guess, will he? Although he was so fast he's not actually see lap people there. But he maybe not in a situation where he needed to push so hard to chase other drivers.
No, possibly not.
Nicole Drought needs to remember to unhook the radio here, otherwise she's going to get strangled.
Don't want that. It's a good way to yet out of the car, I'm afraid. And probably that car out for the race. We'll see if it reappears, but I rather suspect it won't.
She's not hanging around in a hurry, is she?
No. So, looks like that. 40 minutes of the race have gone. Andy Marston leading by half a second from Carl Swift. Last time we saw them come across the line.
The fastest car on the last lap, I know it's all traffic dependent, that was Dave Griffin in the E90 M3, which we have seen once before. I don't remember it lasting particularly long. So great to see that car out there. Another different shape. There's so many different shapes of car on this grid, and that's what makes it fantastic. And it's fantastic to see this production endurance race series, courtesy of the 750 Motor Club. And during the week, lots of people suggesting that they want longer endurance races back, like the Will Hire 24 Hours, which this type of grid does give very much a feel to back in the 1980s. There is Will Stacey. He's pulled away from Sammy Venables now in 7th place, 8th. Then up to 9th in the Audi has come Mark Grice. They obviously had problems in qualifying, which meant they only started 19th. But
was there something going off down towards the hairpin? We'll wait and see. Yes, there is, and it's the Lotus Leon Bidgeway from top 10 out of the race.
Had lasted 18 laps, which is significantly better than it's done in the past, to be fair.
Oh, and there's a bit of contact there between, I think that was that the 1 Series BMW and, didn't catch which other car that was.
Oh, and oh my word.
There's lots of contact. All of a sudden, there's some fluid down there as well.
Well, that's where Liam Bidgeway just pulled off.
Yeah, so if the cars are getting out of shape down at Melbourne Hairpin, possibly there's some fluid down there. Who knows? Maybe we had another safety car. It seems like a good time, therefore, to run down the top 10 positions. First is number 37, Andy Marston. Second is number 1, Carl Swift. Third is number 11, Adam Blair. Fourth is number 100, Steve Laidlaw. Fifth is number 2, Ben Rushworth. Sixth is number 34, Dave Griffin. Seventh is number 49, William Stacey. Eighth is number 70, Sammy Venables. Ninth is number 27, Mark Rice. 10th is number 43, Steve Cheatham. We've seen the 101 car going slowly.
That's the car
that was the car that was involved in a bit of contact, and yeah, there's certainly some damage there. But it's also been off the road earlier, hasn't it, the 101 car of Nick Grove as well. Class B is being led by number 12, Scott Parkin. From number 13, Steve Hewson, and number 5, Jonathan Packett. Class C, Josh, can you see who's leading Class C at the moment?
That would be 188, Graham Kelly, by about 8 seconds from 66, which was started by Jonathan Hayes, and third is number 3, John Munro.
A couple of cars in the penalty area. 179 has gone back out again. I don't think that it was serving a penalty though. And the 22 car is just serving a stop-go penalty, and that is Luke Drowns and Paul Drowns. Luke Drowns in the car at the moment. The 101 car looks to be out of the race.
Yeah, Nick Grove started, so Carlo Turner there isn't going to get a race. I think it looked like there was a broken front left corner on that car. Change for the lead, by the way. Cole Swift has got ahead of Andy Marston. So the Seat goes back to the front. He didn't lead for about 10 laps or so after that off, but he's quickly got back to the front of the field. They're 10 seconds now ahead of Adam Blair, who has been caught by Steve Laidlaw.
So if Matt Suckling hopefully is somewhere down there, he can hopefully go and find our cameraman down there, Adam, in the pit lane, and we'll get those linked up together again, and we'll see if Matt can maybe see if we can start to get some interviews, because we'll be getting driver change, I think, at any moment, especially if we do get a safety car as well. I suspect some drivers, especially the solo drivers here, will be rolling the dice and waiting for a safety car, won't they, Josh?
Yeah, at this point, you obviously don't need fuel, but some cars, they may need fuel earlier than others. There's the Audi, Mark Rice, front Civic Cup racer in the past. He's been doing this endurance series though for a while now. He is up to 9th and 6 seconds behind Sammy Venables in the BMW M4, and he's now 10 seconds clear of Steve Cheatham. Got a tyre squill down there from the other end of the circuit. And the Williams Motor Company Audi RS3 then turns its way down towards the Melbourne Loop. Leaders across the line, by the way. They're still together. Andy Marston is still with Cole Swift by just few tenths of a second, and then 10 seconds later we have a battle of a third across the line between Adam Blair and David Griffin, and then a fifth place battle across the line just a couple of seconds later between Steve Laidlaw and Ben Rushworth. So the top three, or the top six, are running in three pairs out on the racetrack at the minute. Then Will Stacey is solo in 7th, as is Sammy Venables. Then Venables hasn't come through, I don't think. So Mark Wright is up to 8th.
There's Venables in the background, I think.
So the M4 has had a problemed lap. So Cheetham is now 9th. Up into the top 10 has come Phil Knibb, who's lapping quickly in his Seat. Leon now, and down to 11th therefore has gone Sammy Venables. Rene McGann out there, first time we've seen one of those in Club Enduro. That's Matt Dennis, who starts the car that he shared with Graham Price in Class B.
Yeah, it's a new build for this year by Pure Truck Racing, Matt Dennis's team. And his wife, Sarah, also racing in the clearance that's been shared with James Miller.
Here are the leaders, into the hairpin. Cole Swift, they're diving down the inside of a Mini Cooper. The car driven by Neville Jones, and chasing him still is Andy Marston. Then we wait for the battle of third. Here they come. That is Adam Blair's Audi TT, just ahead of David Griffin. Then behind them is the battle of a fifth between Steve Laidlaw and Ben Rushworth. And there's lots of Class B battling that they've just lapped as they turn their way through the hairpin. So we've got a little look there at the three battles up front, but it looked to me like Cole Swift was just starting to gap Andy Marston now. After 22 laps, they cross the line. 1.2 seconds is the gap that separates them.
Certainly is. 45 minutes gone, 46 minutes nearly.
Ben Rushworth looking racy here, isn't he, on the back of Steve Laidlaw?
Yeah, absolutely. Those two just going into Redgate now. There's Will Stacey going through as well.
He's not far behind them, is he?
No, not too far. About 4 seconds behind that battle. 4 or 5 seconds, something like that. Not too much between them at all. Watch this view of the start and finish straight here at Donington Park.
This is battle for 9th. Steve Cheetham versus Phil Knibb. So a lot of cars have got out there in pairs, haven't they, having battles? And chasing them both is Sammy Venables, going quicker. Now he's not in problems. Here comes the Class B leader. That is now Matt Fazy again. And he's pulling away from Scott Parkin. Between them, from pretty much the back of the grid, is the George Haler Seat Leon that was on the podium here a year ago.
That's right.
Coming through. So they got into the top 15 from way back on the grid.
It was pretty much the podium of the grid, I think, that car started. So problems in qualifying, of course. Yeah, was row 26 of the grid. Oh, and that's problems as well. That's from the 99 car. Yeah, that is the car that started from that. That's Joe Williams. WRT team for the 33-year-old mechanic, starting his first season of racing, driving from Leominster.
Trying to find a safe place to park, which is always very appreciated. Now ride on board with the Class B leader. This is Matt Fazy in the car that Steve Hewson won the final round of last season in the class. Now 14th overall, and head Scott Parkin by about 3 seconds. Parkin has lapped quicker during the course of the race than Fazy, but Fazy's doing a good job here to be ahead. I don't think we've seen much of Matt Fazy over the last few years, have we, since he won the class championship?
Yeah, it was 2018 he won the title, the class title, same year as Steve Hewson won it overall, sharing with Matt Noston. Of course, Hewson and Fazy teaming up now this season for this Class B campaign in the Porsche Cayman.
The only races Matt Fazy's done in the last 3 years were at Cadwell Park, where he won twice in the Lotus Elise Trophy, so that's was good for him. And now he is out with Steve Hewson in this Porsche. Although just look on this lap, Scott Parkin is a bit closer again, but there is that Class A Seat between them. And Scott Parkin was at 1.2 seconds quicker than Fazy on that lap, so the gap is reduced.
Josh, go for an update on the position of car number 3, which is the TWP traction branded MX-5 for John Munro, who started that car with Mick Dougal. In fact, we can see it on our screen now. There it is. But where is it in track position, Josh?
It's third in Class C still, but about 20 seconds behind class leader Graham Kelly, with John Munro 35th overall. but third, more importantly, within the class. But the race leaders there we saw for a moment were absolutely together across the line. But let's take a look at that John Munro car. We'll come back to him in a moment because the lead battle is on, because Andy Marston has closed in on Cole Swift. Now, could Cole Swift have to push so hard to get back up? Has he damaged his front tyres? Because, of course, on that Seat, all the work needed to be done by the front tyres on that Seat. We'll come back to the lead battle in a moment. We just see John Munro go through, and we've had a change for third place. Dave Griffin in that E90 M3 didn't start so quickly. He's moving up the order. He's got into third, ahead of Adam Blair. So some good battles out on the circuit, including across the line there, involving Michael Downey's Porsche Boxster and the Ginetta G40, which was started, I'm not sure who by, Matthew Tidmarsh, Chris Webster car there, was started by Matthew Tidmarsh. So they were involved in a battle. And Sammy Venables is slower in the BMW M4, the Elite Motorworks car. In the background, the two Class B leaders are together and they touch. I think there was contact there between the two Class B leaders out of the hairpin, but involved in all of that phase, they're still touching. And they all very close to making contact into Redgate Corner, the two Class B leaders, Scott Parkin and Matt Fazy. We'll follow up on that in a moment, but first let's hear from Matt Sacklin, who's down in the pits.
Yeah, thanks very much, Josh. Down here with Nick Grove, who's just stepped out of the 101 BMW. Nick, it looked like there was a bit of damage on the car and it hasn't gone your way, unfortunately. What's the matter?
No, we've had a fairly interesting start to the race. Obviously a couple of safety cars, just starting to get back into the rhythm, locked up at the bottom of McLean's, went through the gravel, treated it as a drive-through, managed to get all the way out the other side. Again, just managed to get settled back down again. We got some oil temperature warnings, and as we were coming into the Melbourne Loop, I think it was a Lotus straight into the side of us as I turned in, and then at that point the steering was more than usually wonky and really difficult to get a gear. So it seemed okay when we got back and restarted the engine and stuff. So Lalo just took it out, but I think he just turned left at the end of the pit lane. So I think we're probably done.
Yeah, there was quite a bit of damage on the right-hand side of the car, wasn't there? And
he's in crunch as I opened the door. So a bit of fiberglass repair, but first race of the season. So we'll be back.
Yeah, so Carlo's gone away now. I want to let you get away and go and see if he's come back anywhere. But if you can get it back out, you probably will.
If we can bend it back into shape, we'll certainly have another go. It's still quite early in the race, so we'll see what we can do.
Nick, thanks very much for your time.
Cheers.
There we go, Nick Grove with the 101 BMW with some problems. Carlo was just sent back out, but as he said, turned left at the end of the pit lane with some problems. So that one for now is with a retirement.
Thanks, Matt. And that's a great change for Nick Grove and Carlo Turner. Tractor has been busy mowing the car park, ready for next weekend at the grass banks here at Donington Park. But that's the touring cars here next week, but we've got touring cars we'll sort here with the TCR cars in this Tagiwa Club Enduro Championship race.
There's the third place car, Dave Griffin, who's been moving through the order in the E90 M3. He's ahead of Steve Laidlaw and Ben Rushworth's touring cars there. Still half a second, the gap up front, by the way, between Cole Swift and between Andy Marston. Saw there Adam Blair, who had a slow last lap and has dropped to 7th, so I thought he may have come into the pits, but that's not the case.
So, yeah, of course, he's got those 15 seconds worth of penalties dragged to his time as well. I think it's a 5 and a 10 making 15 rather than a 5 and 15, from what I gather.
But yeah, he's dropped positions on the road as well. He lost third to Dave Griffin, and now he's lost 3 more positions with presumably an error. There's Rob Fennick heading through in his Class B Lotus, in the car that he shares with Andrew Howard.
Up to the up there is the 71 car, I think that was, going through shot. That's the 70 car, wasn't it? That's the correction. Yeah, it was the 70 car of the Venables, I think.
Yeah, but the car's still going, isn't it? Because that had the problem a little while ago. I thought it was coming to a halt just before we spoke to Matt. And of course, at that point as well, the 2 Class B drivers were trying to take each other out, weren't they?
What's the result of all of that?
Scott Parkin is now ahead of Matt Fazy. But
Couple of seconds between them, isn't
there was some non-ideal things happening, I think, between those two. Here are the two leaders. Andy Marston sideways out of the Goddard hairpin, right on terms with Cole Swift then, the race leader, as they come down toward Redgate. But Marston is keeping with Swift, and these are both solo drivers now, we believe. So that race battle could last the whole distance. And then here comes Griffin. He's in third. The team, the Lodge Porsches have got themselves together, haven't they? Steve Cheetham laps Colin Gillespie. Cheetham is ninth, and he's keeping Phil Nibb there at bay as they head their way down in towards the Melbourne loop. They're 9th and 10th now in this race, the Porsche and the Seat.
Yeah, Gillespie in the Class B Porsche Cayman there, whereas 43 car Steve Cheetham is a Class A Boxster. There's that 70 car of Sammy Venables, which has had a bit of a mixed race so far, it's fair to say. Running at the moment in 14th position. Is that still on the lead lap, or is it now a lap down?
It should still be on the lead lap,
I think, yeah. It's the number 70 car, and it's Steve Hodgkinson, Sammy Venables' teammate, that this is Donington Park, his favourite circuit. He's not yet had the chance to drive it in this particular race. 58-year-old surface architect in that Elite Works prepared M4.
Couple of Lotus have got themselves together there, down through the Craner curves, but the leaders exit the hairpin, where I think they are lapping Reece Lycett, who is back out on track, but not racing still, I don't think.
No, still with those gearbox issues, I suggest, which is a great shame for young Reece.
Oh. And it's the Class C leader, is it not? That is Graham Kelly that's come to a stop on the exit of the Melbourne hairpin.
That's 325i for Graham Kelly, and that's looking like he's going to need some help to get back into the race. Another retirement, by the way, I think it's been 22. The Luke Browse and Paul Browse car, but been told that's been a retirement from the race as well. So we have lost a few cars during the course of this race so far, or cars which have had sort of long pit stops and got back out again. It looks like Graham Kelly is getting out of the car, or preparing to get out of the car, which I wouldn't be advising given his position.
Yeah, so you know what that might mean.
Yep.
A difficult time for pit stops.
Yeah, you're sort of getting to sort of prime pit stop time, isn't it? I think Graham should probably be staying in his car.
So what that means is Jonathan Hayes now leads Class C from John Munro, who we were talking about earlier, but Munro 20 seconds behind Hayes, and third, that promotes Rory Baptiste.
Right, Kelly's managed to get his car a few inches further off the road. Still not off the road though, unfortunately. So we'll see what happens to this. The marshal has now arrived and is suggesting to Graham that if he can, he should pull the car into the old pit lane entrance.
Has something happened? Maybe not. I was wondering something had happened to Andy Marston there, but I think he's okay. Yeah, he's still actually right with Cole Swift, isn't he? So yeah, no problems, which is good news for the E46 M3 driver that heads across the line. Black
flag being shown to someone, which is probably making them aware of a pit stop penalty that they need to serve. You can't see the numbers from here being shown to the drivers though. Let me just check my source of information, see what I can find out, if anything.
Badman fourth comes out the hairpin, still Steve Laidlaw ahead of Ben Rushworth. Rushworth quite as close to Laidlaw as one could.
He's got a bit further away. Yes, he's onto the old pit lane entrance now, is Graham Kelly, but that car is still not in an ideal position, but it's in a slightly less bad position than it was, and Graham is now at least able to get out of the car.
Leaders exit McLean's in traffic, as they pretty much constantly are now, and turn their way through Coppice Corner. Andy Marston is doing a great job here, I'd suggest, Ian, keeping with Cole Swift throughout this first part of the race, especially considering how Cole Swift caught him after going off. Yeah,
the rate at which Cole Swift caught him, you'd think he'd then be able to pull away, but that's not been the case at all. That's the 100 car, the Steve Laidlaw car. That's in 4th position, just putting a lap on the
Class C leader.
Class C, yeah, the new Class C leader, therefore. In what position overall is that? 31st. Yes, we've got to your screen now, isn't it? Jonathan Hayes, Paul Sibiani car, the Canet racing car.
So, yeah, so they're going well. There's a Class B leader, Scott Parkin. And where is Matt Faisley? About 5 seconds behind now. And they're still going to be lapped by the Class A leaders because they're turning their way across the line, complete 30 laps of this race. I can see there's yellow flags at Coppice in the background.
Yes,
I don't think we've seen the reason for that.
So that's probably something that's got stopped on the straight. Ah, there we are.
Will Stacey.
It is Will Stacey. Now, he was inside the top 10, wasn't he?
Yeah, that's 6th, I think. Oh, that car has come to a halt in the last moment.
But Marshall and the driver having to get that car to a position of safety. So number 49 is the latest retirement. There's been a few retirements so far then, Josh. The Elise are now out of the race.
Yeah, this is endurance racing. It's just about being fast and consistent. It's also about being reliable and having good pit strategy and pit stops begin.
Darren Anderson is handing over there to Roy Chappell, down the 48-year-old Porsche specialist, so obviously he's racing BMW. Rallied a Mark 114 in the past. He's only started racing in 2019. That car actually was built to go rallying, but they're actually running it in Club Enduro on the circuit, so that's a car that would go better than that. Why are they running that 190 car? It's in 37th position and second, third, fourth, thinking Class C.
So that's quite good. The Wallaces are heading exit stage left, or stage right if you're watching the screens, into the pit lane. So Matthew Wallace will hand over to his brother Simon, one of the Area Motorsport prepared cars. There's a few garages of Area Motorsport run vehicles here at the far end of the pit lane. And that is where Matt Wallace is, the first of those stoppers.
Yep. In the pit lane you can see they're stopping at the 45-degree angle to avoid too much congestion when drivers are making the stops. They all have to pull in at 45 degrees and then be pushed back out into the race. Matthew Wallace getting out of the car. And Simon will get in. Car being refuelled at the moment.
He thought he had to get out, shut the door before the fuelling could begin. And then have the fuel going in, and then somebody will be ready with a fire extinguisher. Well, hopefully won't be needed, but just in case. There is Rob Baker. He certainly doesn't look like he's going to be driving the car. So he's on a patch where he's running so many cars. He thought driving the car as well is not really feasible. So he's on team boss duties.
Yeah, Area Motorsport boss there. And that is one of the Area Motorsport cars, the number 6 of the Wallace brothers. Started their racing in MR2s for a decade ago, I should think. They raced together in MR2s, and they raced in Civics together for a while, didn't they, as well?
That's right. So their pit stop. Don't have to rush them. That's the whole point of the minimum pit stop time. There's Sammy Venables seemingly back up to speed, although now he is 15th in the race. And he turns his way down towards the Melbourne Loop. Into the top 10 now has come George Haler in that car that's started from the back. Marshall still working to move the BMW down there, by the way.
Yeah, that's on the old Grand Prix pit entrance, as we're watching on the screen, the number 70 Elite Works car. And who's that into the pits?
That's the Rob Fenwick Lotus.
Rob Fenwick Lotus, isn't it, that's going in?
So Andrew Howard should be making his 70th local debut here.
I'm looking a bit blank because I don't know the answer to that question. I suspect it probably is.
I think he just raced minis, didn't he, before he went GT racing?
Yeah.
And this is the Reese Lysett car, isn't it?
Yeah, so
you'd think wouldn't need fuel at this stage.
It might as well. It's going to be Steve Brockington that will get into the car, the 46-year-old programme manager in his first season of racing. Done some tarmac and then gravel rallying with Steve.
Reese Lysett did do 16 laps, actually. Not very quickly, it has to be said.
The leads have done 32, to put that in context.
Yeah, so he did. Does need perhaps some fuel, not as much as he probably would have hoped. See Matt Suckling watching on as Area Motorsport do their pit stop. Getting quite busy down there now, so Matt's going to have plenty of drivers to chat to as we head into the second part of this race.
Yep, so getting ready to, as soon as that 3-minute countdown has been completed, to push the car back out of the race. There we are, 180 seconds up. And Simon is going to go back out into the race for the remaining hour and 1 minute. So they've split that pretty evenly between the two drivers, haven't they?
That's right, yeah. Lead gap now 2.5 seconds. Andy Marston is just starting to fall away. There's third place, Dave Griffin, who's 20 seconds behind, but he's really pulled away from Steve Laidlaw and Ben Rushworth, who are together as they turn their way into the hairpin. Ben Rushworth can't go through. Ben Rushworth half a minute behind Cole Swift here, which I can't imagine would be in Ben's norm.
No, but I mean, Cole Swift's been racing these cars for a long while now, and it's Ben's first time out. Ben, very experienced, from a Metro champion, of course, and Hot Hat champion as well in the Honda that he raced to such great effect. There's done bits and pieces of other racing as well, hasn't he? By invitation from him.
Yes, he raced in Historics thanks to Paul Hugo, who's one of his sponsors. He raced the Chevrolet V8 primarily as his historic exploits a few decades ago, and impressed in that. Historic racing peaks were pretty impressed with Ben's debut a few seasons ago. Meanwhile, the Audi is pitting.
Is that the Adam Blair car?
No, the Mark Grice.
Yes, it is.
Which came out 7th. Good stint there for Mark Grice. He opened a lot of cars, and the car in 8th is also in. That's Phil Nibbs, Sayat Leon. And we saw Matt hanging around in the pit lane, and now he's caught up with a driver.
Down here in the pit lane with the number 6 machine, Matt Wallace, who's just jumped out of the car. Matt, that looked like a hard stint, but a good one.
It was really hard. I felt like the first 20 minutes or so was awesome. The car felt really good and everything. And then that last sort of 30, 40 minutes, I think it's the same for everyone, but the tyres were just really going off and I was really struggling. So we just, even though there was no safety car, we decided to make the move and come in at the right time. So.
And you were plagued, weren't you, in that early stint by a couple of safety cars? How did that kind of work for you?
It worked all right, actually, because when the safety car came out, I had a couple of people right on my bum, and then by the time the safety car came in, I'd managed to pull a bit of a gap, which is always handy. So yeah, it was actually okay for us.
You've now handed over to your brother. What are you kind of expecting from the day here?
Well, hopefully he can do a little bit better than me, but we'll see. I've just got no idea. Yesterday in testing, we were both around the same time, so hopefully he can just go out there and keep the car on the track till the end.
It's hard work, so it's not that warm, but it's a long circuit, it's a hard circuit.
Yeah, it's a very hard circuit. I mean, if I was doing it in another 10 degrees of weather on top of this, it'd be really hard work. So the cars get very, very hot inside. So as you can see, it's like a full workout.
Yeah, but that's now you done for the day?
It's hopefully done for the day, unless Simon decides to come in for an unexpected reason.
Well, good stuff, Matt. Well done.
Cheers, thanks very much.
There we go. Matt Wallace down here in the pit lane. Now out the number 6 car, but brother in it, ready to go to the end of the race.
Thanks, Matt. So good to hear there from with another Matt, with Matt Wallace down in the pit lane. There's Luke Handley, the reigning Class B champion. He's currently in 5th. There's Ben Rushworth, and he has not got Steve Laidlaw directly ahead of him now because he's a couple of seconds behind. There's now Andrew Howard out in the Lotus Elise, so we'll see what Andrew Howard can do. I don't know when the last time he didn't race an Aston Martin was, so
sure on that.
good to see him out here. A late entry. There's Sarah Dennis and James Millars, Renault Clio, who we saw earlier on, turning their way through McLean's corner into the second half, as we were saying, of this race now.
A couple of cars are going to have to start again. A couple of cars are going to have to serve some stop-go penalties. 27, which is the car that carried the pits, the Mark White Will Beach Audi RS3 TCR car. They've got 2 1-minute stop-go penalties to serve, apparently. And 191 car, which is that one growing, he's got 1 stop-go penalty to serve.
Okay, that's kind of ruined their races. 42 there going through. There's a new Lotus Elise in the series, driven by Paul Clark and Tom Gladys. Good to see some new names out there in the 2022 season. Here are the Class B leaders. It's Matt Fazy that we ride on board with. It's the Diesel Golf up ahead of Scott Parkin in the Darkside Developments car that runs wide, just about stays on the circuit. So that's all happening in front of Matt Fazy then, who turns his way down towards the S's, brakes, and down at the gears in the flappy paddo box there, gets a bit sideways and then accelerates back off after the Class B leader. They're now, as they haven't pitted, in 9th and 10th overall and 15 seconds ahead of Jonathan Packer, and they're about to lap that Toyota Yaris that we've enjoyed seeing out there in this race.
Absolutely right. You mentioned Tom Gladys being involved in this race. He's another driver that's raced at a high level, up to including FIA Formula 2 Championship in between 2009 and 2011.
I think you recognise these names, I can't remember where from. Thanks for that info. It's great to see him back out racing here in that Class A Lotus Elise with Paul Clark, who started the car. So across the line then comes a load of cars, which includes that Janetta G40 of Matthew Tidmarsh, that's 19th overall now.
Yeah, Matthew Tidmarsh showed the car with the car's owner, Chris Webster, riding Tangerine Racing. It's less of a Tangerine though than it was when they raced the MX-5, which I think is available as a high car. 13. Ooh. Very crossed up from Matt Fazy there as he went through McLean's. He's kept it pointing in the right direction there as they come up to Coppice.
Yes, and Scott Parkin therefore trying to get away, but he got caught up in a bit of traffic out of Coppice, and that has slowed the Golf up somewhat. So one TWP car was in trouble, now the other one has a drama.
But it's good news for our friends watching who branded the car, the traction livery, because it's getting a bit of exposure in the pit lane. That's the number 3 car, John Monroe, Nick Dougal. So if that car does go back out again, Dougal, I'm sure will be aboard it. But there's some work being done on the left corner on that car as it's sitting in the pit lane.
Ben Rushworth has not come through. Does that mean he's in the pits? I wonder. As the leaders come through, 4 seconds apart now, Cole Swift and Andy Marston. David Goodin is back in, so perhaps Nigel Greenstall gets a run now, but that car's way down, out of contention, I should think. So with Rushworth not come through, meaning 5th place is Steve Cheetham, 6th place is now George Taylor, and then the Class B leaders up next with Scott Parkin with this reduced margin again over Matt Fazy. But Taylor, is it just going through?
Yeah, it might well have been actually.
Here are the one of the Class B contenders. This is a back on board with Matt Fazy, who was entertaining through McLean's a lap ago. This time he gets understeer, then oversteer later on. There's one of the area Sayers, that's the now Simon Wallace driven car, isn't it? That rather getting on in his way through the corners.
Yeah. And Fazy, although he's in a Class B car, gets ahead of it through Coppice and down the straights, but the TCR car is level pegging with it more or less down straight around. He's going to pull him behind, I think. I don't know if that right indicator's going for a reason, but it kind of indicated he's going to pull him behind. He's not got the pace, has he, Simon Wallace, coming off the call there? So I think Simon Wallace possibly in trouble in that area motorsport car. But here are the 2 Class B front runners together now then. Scott Parkin and Matt Fazy. Yeah, definitely he's lost a bit of ground there. Heading up towards Goddard, the hairpin.
To be fair, I thought it would be worse than what it ended up being. What we were going to see. So.
I thought the same at McLean's a couple of laps ago. But they're coming out, the 2 Class B leaders, nose to tail, and in, what are they, 7th and 8th overall now, with the pit stops sort of in mid-flow.
In the background, we saw Will Beach come in the Audi to serve one of those penalties that we heard about a moment ago. So onto Hollywood and down the Craner curve for these Class B leaders. Up over the curve through the left-handed element there. So that battle continues to go on. They're now 15 seconds ahead of Jonathan Packer, who's third. Now, how's McLean's going to go this time for Matt Fazy when he turns in and he then rates up the corner with no drama?
Yeah, it's different every lap, isn't it, with Matt Fazy at McLean's? Got every one lap for the next what's going to happen. So that's the Hayes and Subiani BMW head. I think it's now Subiani aboard, isn't it? In that car?
Yeah, looks like they've stopped. There's the Mini out there, the Cooper S, which is the car shown between Neville Jones and Matthew George. Another brand on track. The Audi TT is pitted now. Adam Blair.
So what was that from? 6th, was it? Yeah.
Where's it gone? No, so perhaps it's been in already because it's down to 23rd. So
Yeah, it's probably would have been in and made it.
oh, stop. There's Cole Swift up to here. So is Andy Schulz now in the 46 M3? I'd
I
imagine.
suspect he probably is if he's giving Carl Swift a race.
Here the Class B leaders still going at it.
They are. Different lines taken through the Goddard hairpin that time. And out of it they come along the Wheatcroft straight towards Redgate Corner. It is parking still ahead. But is that going to be the case? Will they get to it? Gets a faster Class A car threading its way between them as well, which gets out of shape. That's Dave Griffin. And now the 12 car, the parking Golf, tries to go back from the inside but can't lift with the BMW as it gets the power down through the corner curves. So that car of the BMW, where is that running? Third. It's running third, so he's a lap ahead now.
Right, yeah, Dave Griffin good run. He's not losing any time to the two leaders. He's still only 20 seconds behind. Matt, though, is continuing his work downstairs in the pit lane, and let's see who he's caught up with now.
Yeah, just down here with Ben Rushworth, who's just jumped out the number 2. So, Ben, nice to see you in something a little bit different this year. How was that for you in the first in?
Baptism of fire, that was absolutely mental. I've only sweat in a car twice like that before, and once I wasn't driving. So yeah, it was good.
A quick car, I imagine.
Yeah, it's such a composed car, and it's really different to jump into that compared to what took a little while to get used to it. Obviously, starting the race, as busy it is, trying to keep up with people, it's mayhem out there. So I've never done enduro, so it's another thing altogether.
You enjoyed it though?
Yeah, it was brilliant. Right towards the end, settling down, couldn't really keep up with the front running guys. Got not held up, but me and the guy in front, I had strengths and he had strengths, and they sort of averaged out a bit. And then yeah, just trying to keep it on the track, keep it tidy, not push too hard, because they do go off. Almost like they go off, and yeah, they go off.
I saw you talking to the team there about tyres. Anything wrong with them, or just checking them over?
Roy, when they called me in to pit, I was going into the chicane alongside BMW, and I ran a bit wide, and the sausage curbs, yeah, took me out. But luckily, it was on the last lap before they called me in to pit, so I just shouted to get some tyres out.
Now James into the car, of course. What do you think he can bring it home in terms of a result?
A, I don't even know where we are. And B, I just hope we keep it on and keep the same position. And maybe there's a bit of attrition at the front. It's the first race we've both done, so if we can just keep it on there on the track, it'd be awesome to finish.
Great job so far.
Cheers, mate.
And there we go, Ben Rushworth then, as we said, out the number 2 car. Not too sure where he is, but I'm sure two people who do know where he is, Ian and Josh.
He's showing that in 18th position at the moment, having made that stop, so he'll climb back up, or James will, as some of the cars ahead of him that haven't stopped will make their pit stops. A bit of news from that Class B battle is that 13 car, Matt Fazy, which has been exuberantly driven, has picked up a 5-second penalty for exceeding track limits now, so that rather blunts the battle that he was having with Scott Parker. They're 1.2 seconds apart on the road, but make that 6.2 seconds on corrected times.
Having a look at that Renault Megane that you were talking about earlier, that was being newly built ready for this championship season. There's the other traction car done by TWP that we saw just for a moment, the Reese Lysick driven car earlier. 14 going through there is Christopher Freeman, Volkswagen Golf, who is battling towards the front of the Class B cars. There's Jonathan Packer, who's third in that class, 15 seconds behind the two leaders. And there's the Blair and Parkin TT. And Adam Blair out of the car. Looks like Ryan Parkin is going to get races in it, but we know this is the second pit stop, which is not part of the plan in the Club Enduro Championship, not at this round anyway.
No, absolutely not. So we'll get the car back out into the race, the Darkside Developments car. The car which is built by Slide Sports for the VW Cup. And it rumbles into the pit lane with 46 minutes of the race. The dust on the circuit there, with the cars having gone off in earlier races. That's at Coppice Corner. And we've got two Seats going wheel to wheel. One is the Haler car and one is the race leading car of Carl Swiftall. The Haler car is a lap behind, isn't it?
I wonder, yes, it's about to go a lap behind anyway. So George Haler's trying quite hard to stay on the lead lap just in case.
Yeah.
Because that's always an important factor in these type of races. Andy Schulz has now dropped behind Cole Swift. Cole Swift seemed to be quite happy to run very much wheel to wheel a moment ago, didn't he, with George Haler? He's got a 5-second lead. So he doesn't want to get held up here too much.
He does now put a lap on the 187 Haler cord if that's going to head for the pits. No, it's Jonathan Beeson that will drive the second stint in that particular car, and they'll need to make that stop in the next 30 minutes because the pit lane closes with 15 minutes of the race left to go.
And yeah, he did actually lose a couple of seconds on that lap, Cole Swift. That's why he was keen to get through, because Andy Marston closed him in as he was getting stuck in traffic. And now he finds that Tom Gladys now driven Lotus, and he goes right round the outside through the Craner curve, which looked pretty spectacular. And then he turns the car over the inside of the old hairpin. Not sure if the trim on the side there is a little bit loose after its off-track excursion earlier. That's sort of, I don't think that's really caused too much of an issue for Cole Swift, who turned a little bit of oversteer there maybe into McLean's as he lapped a Honda Civic. Yeah, there's definitely oversteer, isn't there, in that Seat? And whether they will decide to change tyres in the pit stop at Area Motorsport or not. So they turn their way down to the S's. There's not many races which Cole Swift has not won in recent years of the Club Enduro Championship. They lost out on one victory at Silverstone last year when they had a brake issue, and they lost out on one race in 2020 when Alan Henderson beat them at Elton Park. But otherwise, Cole Swift has won every race in the recent years of the Club Enduro season.
Yeah, usually sharing with Rob Baker though, more often than not. Usually Carl's probably done the lion's share of the racing, hasn't he, I would think. It's fair to say. Going solo here. 23 car, the Clio, you can see just heading down the hill. That's Sarah Dennis, who's now out in the race, ex-Stockcats racer. She started racing 20 odd years ago, I would think, but had a long break from racing and has come back to it now.
Steve Cheatham is pitting from 6th place. Former champion.
The box dirt on the right hand side of screen, so down the pit lane.
There's Andrew Howard going through in his Lotus. He's 27th overall. He's in the Class B car. He's a little bit slower than the front runners. There is Andy Marston trying to squeeze past a slower car. How did that work out for him? Not particularly well, but he's still on the road. That's the more important thing. Now he gets past the Rory Baptiste and Tim Hartland, E46. And he's also now lapped George Haler, hasn't he? The Seat that's a lap down.
Tim Hartland, I think, was one of, if not the only driver last year to collect awards in 2 different championships, because he collected award for being one of the best golfs as well in the Hot Hatch Championship last year. Are you looking at what I'm looking at, which is that grass in the sort of air intake there with the #1 car?
It looks that way, doesn't it? We've seen a lot of dust kicked up because the old hairpin at Coppice. There's a lot of inside of the road being used by pretty much everybody. So I guess if you're close behind someone where that happens, that's possible.
2 cars pulling out before the weekend.
David Goodin also races Jaguar E-types with, or a Jaguar E-type with Nigel. So that's where their relationship started. Of course, Nigel is also a driver coach. And he's keeping up with the Audi RS3 here, which has had those penalties, so it's dropped down to 22nd. Andrew Howard here, just being lapped. He turns his way into the S's. Andrew Howard, a massively experienced driver nowadays. He's raced at Le Mans a number of times. been strange in recent years to not see him race with Johnny Adam, who he raced with for such a long time. Not too sure actually what Andrew's plans are this year, because he's not racing in British GT, he's not racing European Le Mans Series, so why not come into Club Enduro for your next step up?
Exactly, it's the next development, I think. It's hugely competitive, fantastic value for money endurance racing, great spectacle, nice variety of cars. Why would you want to be anywhere else? Just seen the 44 car, it's the 44 Stuart, well, David Trigg car, I suspect. Has that fitted? Yeah, I think it has, isn't it?
Yeah, that's the Exige V6 Cup R.
Yeah.
But racing European Lotus Series.
Of course, we used to see David and Trigg in TVR Tuscan, didn't we, in various races.
It is a tiny car compared to the Audi behind of Will Beach now, who runs Williams Motor Company, which is on the side of the car. It's a great looking car, that Audi RS3. That's the type of car Gordon Shedden raced in the World Touring Car Championship, which I don't think was Gordon's favourite times. So he's come back to the British Touring Car Championship. He'll be racing here next weekend at Donington Park. There's 98. That is the Class C BMW of Rory Baptiste and Tim Hartland. And who leads Class C now? Well, I think everyone has pitted, and it's gone back the way of Hayes and Sabiani, and they are 40 seconds ahead of the Baptiste Hartland car we see all there. And then into third position has come the Connell and Nolan MX-5. And I think they're only in their second season of racing and going well. They're in third place in the 97 car.
That's right, Dave Connell and Dave Nolan. 33 and 32 years, respectively, both started racing in 2021. And this was a car that's been in the Connell family for 10 years, but converted to racing only a couple of years ago.
I saw Sam McKee wishing them luck, who we've seen out in 750 Motor Club races in the past. Here is Tom Gladys sharing with Paul Clark in the Lotus there. That's a bit further down the order now, I think. That car, good to see that car out there. There's 13 yet to pit. That's Matt Fazy. So who is the lead in pit stop? I think it's the Sam Laidlaw driven Seat, isn't it? It's now in 8th. He's, I think, pulled away now from James Ramsden, who's taken over from Ben Rushworth.
Yeah, Ramsden in 10th at the moment.
And then Andy Schulz is catching them quickly. He's only 17 seconds behind Ramsden, and was 5 seconds quicker on the last lap. So, and he's got ahead of Dave Griffin, who remember was third earlier. So Andy Schulz is bringing that BMW 46 M3 into a strong contending position, I suggest.
His best lap time is a 1:42.17, which is pretty competitive, isn't it? When you look at Marston and Swift, they've both lapped in the 140s, but nobody else, apart from the Laidlaws and Rushworth, have really been lapping in that kind of pace, I don't think, that's sort of in contention now. A bit further back, I think Adam Blair has as well. He was lapping the 142s, but they've dropped back quite a long way now.
Here he is. Here is Andy Schulz, experienced GT racer in the Torque Speed BMW E46 M3 again this year. And he then is going to lap the MX-5 we were talking about a moment ago. That's in a podium position at the moment in class. So through McLean's goes Schulz. Pit window's only open for another 20 minutes or just under, isn't it? So those cars that haven't pitted will have to do so soon, and then we'll get a better read on the race. And I'm wondering if Andy Marston is in the pit lane now. Oh, there's a car off at Coppice, or run out wide at least, much like we had a moment ago.
Yeah, again, I don't think we're going to see anything once the dust clears, are we? Unfortunately.
We haven't had much rain in the UK lately, so therefore it's pretty dusty on the grass and on the gravel.
Yeah, I think drivers now that were sort of thinking, oh well, we'll wait till it's another safety car period, probably or possibly ought to be thinking about making their move and making their pit stop now, because time is running out.
They'll be running out of fuel as well, I suspect.
Yeah, that's the problem, isn't it? Someone will be very tight on fuel, I suspect.
So here comes Schulz to lap Cam Walton's Toyota. So the gap to James Ramsden is now 4 seconds because he's caught another 6. So Andy Schulz might be passed on the next lap. And that is for second of the stoppers, although we wait for Andy Marston to come out the pit lane. So here comes Schulz over the curve, through the craners, down into the old hairpin. He's not quite using as much road as we saw in some of the sprint races. We need to conserve the car, make sure it lasts the full distance. And there's the leader who's just put a lap on James Ramsden. They're in 2, and that is the car that Andy Schulz is catching.
That 97 car's got damage, hasn't it? Well, it's got the rear bumper flapping away. The car now driven by Dave Nolan.
Almost got driven into there by the Porsche boxer Michael Downing as it got all quite busy. Yeah, that rear bumper is trying to escape the car. Well, certainly on one side it is. The other side not too bad, but with half an hour still to go, you'd think it might shake itself loose at some point.
Yeah, you see the Michael Downey car going through, the CW Motorsport prepared car for the Michael, who works in insurance, 5th season of racing in Club Enduro. He's inspired by his dad, Dave Downey, to start racing in this. Dave, his father raced in this until 2019, I think, on his own right.
Michael Downey finished 8th in this class championship last year, and the Audi is off at Coppice. So we've seen dust at Coppice. Now we've got a car as well.
The wheel there, the left-hand wheel, looks like it's at an interesting angle, which is just there might have been a breakage on that car on the way up the hill towards Coppice. So that's the 27 car of Will Beach. It is now beached, and the Audi iOS 3 TCR car is out of the race.
Question is, did it just break by itself, or more likely was there contact at some stage?
Cynic.
Well, TCR cars are built to do long distances, therefore they generally don't. Well, generally they don't break without contact. So
no, it might just been a light touch there to damage it.
That's Scott Parkin's Golf.
I think it might be.
Is that at the end of the pit lane?
Just trying to figure out exactly where that is. We're looking through the fence, but it does look like, yeah, it's at Starkey's Bridge. So it's the number 12 car of Scott Parkin, who was the Class B sort of effective leader earlier on. There's Will Beach getting his helmet off. He's out of the race. So a couple of rapid drivers out of the race.